Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into something many of us think we've got figured out, weight loss.
Hmm.
But we're going to explore how it might be driven by something profoundly different than you'd expect.
Right.
Our mission today is really to explore what truly fuels hunger and maybe how recent things like semaglutide are opening up a deeper conversation.
A more honest one, maybe.
Exactly, about our relationship with food.
It's true.
Yeah.
Because, the world usually talks calories, carbs, maybe just needing more discipline when it comes to weight.
Yeah, the usual suspects.
But Dan Hollis, who's got this really unique perspective, he suggests that, well, that common view is often just off the mark, completely wrong sometimes.
Off the mark, hat.
He points to something else, something he calls emotional amnesia, or maybe just confusion, that being the real root issue.
Emotional amnesia. That flips the whole script, doesn't it, on how we're taught to think about hunger.
It really does.
Which brings us to the core question for this deep dive. What if the struggle isn't about being broken? What if? What if you weren't broken, just confused?
Mm-hmm.
What does that emotional amnesia actually feel like for someone, you think?
Well, it's like, imagine reaching for that snack, but it's not because your stomach is actually growling.
Okay.
It's because you've sort of forgotten how to process a deeper feeling, maybe loneliness, boredom, stress,
Mm-hmm.
could even be happiness, oddly enough.
Right. Food becomes the go-to response.
Exactly. It's the default answer, this like comfortable noise
Right.
that masks the real question underneath it all.
Yeah.
There's a lack of clarity, almost an inner fog,
Mm.
keeps you from seeing what you really need.
So over the next little while, we're going to try and pull back the curtain on what happens when that constant noise, the cravings, finally quiets down.
And what happens then?
Yeah. What surprising truths about ourselves, about food, start coming up? We're drawing on some incredible stuff here, insights from a meeting with Dan Hollis himself, and these really powerful field notes from his work with real people.
Yeah, those field notes are something else.
Okay, so let's dive in. You mentioned hunger. Most people, when they think hunger, they picture, the stomach rumbling, maybe that blood sugar crash feeling.
The physical stuff.
Right. But Dan Hollis wants us to look way beyond that surface level.
Way beyond. He offers this much deeper definition. He argues that emotional hunger, it isn't just some craving you white-knuckle through.
Okay.
He says it's a question, a need asking to be seen. And what's really fascinating is his observation that when the usual noise, the food chatter gets turned down.
Right, when food isn't talking, as he says.
Exactly. That's when these deeper, often kind of hidden emotions, loneliness, anxiety, boredom, even joy, you haven't acknowledged they can finally surface.
Yeah.
And you see how tangled up they are with how and why we eat.
And what really struck me from his notes was this idea that people often relapse, not back into hunger, but into confusion.
Yes, that's such a key point.
It's not the physical need that trips them up. It's this profound disorientation when the old habits, the familiar patterns just aren't there anymore.
That is so powerful.
Mhm.
Relapsing into confusion. It really shows how deep the connection between food and our emotional world can be.
Mm-hmm. And this is exactly where treatments like semaglutide,
Yeah.
Ozempic, Wegovy come into the picture. They offer this really unique kind of opportunity.
Right. It's a GLP-1 receptor agonist. Basically, it mimics a natural gut hormone.
Okay.
So it helps you feel full, slows down digestion a bit, tells your brain you're satisfied. It definitely helps curb those intense physical hunger signals.
But Dan Hollis says it's more than just that, right? He stresses it's not a fix.
Not a fix at all. He calls it something much more profound, like a biological pause,
Or a window.
a window.
Yeah. He put it very powerfully, actually. He said it gives you a moment where food stops talking. And for some people, that's the first honest moment they've had in 20 years.
Wow. 20 years, that's quite something.
It really is. Think about it.
Yeah, because if food has been your emotional scaffolding, he calls it.
For years, right?
Yeah.
This constant, predictable thing. Then when it's suddenly not doing that job anymore, it must feel, incredibly exposing.
Totally. Suddenly those feelings have nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. And yeah, that can be really unsettling for people.
So the real power of the medication, in Dan's view, isn't just the weight loss.
No, not just that. It's the time it buys you. Time to actually reflect, to maybe reset, and potentially rewire that whole relationship with yourself, with food.
Okay.
He's very direct about it. Semaglutide isn't the solution to emotional eating. It's the silence that lets you find one. It all comes down to what you do with that quiet.
Which leads us to this unexpected challenge, something that often comes up after the weight loss starts happening. It's not always the big celebration people imagine.
Right. This is where Dan Hollis brings in his concept of identity lag.
Identity lag. Tell me more.
He explains it like this. Your body can change faster than your story. And when that happens, the soul gets confused. It's like this deep disconnect. Your internal map hasn't caught up with your new physical reality.
That sounds disorienting.
Very. And we saw this really compelling, almost poignant example in the notes with Adrienne. She's 53.
Right, I remember reading about her.
She'd lost a significant amount of weight. And one morning, she's just brushing her teeth, looks in the mirror, and just doesn't recognize herself.
Wow.
And it wasn't like, yay, look at me. It felt like a disappearance,
Yeah.
she said. Even though, logically, clothes fit better, her needs didn't hurt.
But she felt like she was vanishing.
Yeah, it was a shock of not belonging to her own reflection, this new, unfamiliar body looking back.
So she wasn't really mourning the weight itself.
No, not the pounds. She was mourning, and this is his phrase, the version of herself who had carried them.
Ah, okay.
The person who knew how to work a room with a joke, maybe, or knew exactly which sweater felt safe,
Mm-hmm.
The real crisis hits after the physical hunger quiets down.
When the old rituals disappear.
Exactly. When the rituals dissolve, the protective armor, as he calls it, drops, and suddenly you might feel unrecognizable, even to yourself. That's the clash, the inner story hitting the outer reality.
Okay, so if semaglutide creates this quiet space, this biological pause, what does Dan Hollis actually tell people to do with it? How do you navigate that emptiness?
Well, he calls it his plan for the quiet, and it's about building new scaffolding in that space that's opened up.
Scaffolding, like building something new inside.
Pretty much. It's not just a to-do list. It's about constructing a new internal support system. You need a new framework for understanding your emotions.
Right.
A new identity that feels true to who you're becoming. New daily rituals to replace the old eating ones. And, crucially, a new language to talk about these deep shifts.
Language seems important here.
Very. Each piece supports the others, creating a solid foundation. It's really about rewriting the story people were too full to finish.
Too full to finish. That's potent.
Yeah. And he explains that people often stumble, not because the drug stops working, but because nobody taught them what to do with the silence. And that silence can feel like losing something familiar, even if it was, as he puts it, a favorite lie.
It's really important to stress, though, his approach isn't anti-medication, is it?
Not at all. Absolutely not. It's about seeing the medication as this incredible opportunity. That silence it creates, that's the space to find real lasting solutions for emotional eating instead of just, quieting a symptom temporarily.
Got it.
He teaches people to, quote, observe the craving, not obey it. And maybe even more importantly, to decode what that hunger really means.
Decode it.
Yeah. Shifts from just reacting and eating to being mindful, understanding yourself, turning that compulsion into a moment of, self-discovery.
So let's get practical. Rewriting the story, what did that actually look like for Adrienne? You mentioned language being key. How did he help her shift from, say, shame to memory?
It often started really simply, just by listening to the exact words she used. So if she said something like, I feel so ashamed of how I used to eat, Dan might gently ask, okay, but what if that wasn't shame? What if it's simply a memory of a time food was doing a different job for you?
Changing the label changes the feeling.
Exactly. It's about creating new mental pathways for those old stories, swapping out judgmental words for ones that are more neutral, more curious. So yeah, shame became memory, and then control became curiosity, and discipline became alignment.
That shift from discipline to alignment, that feels huge.
It really is.
It suggests holding on to the changes isn't just about gritting your teeth and having willpower.
No, not just willpower. It's about changing the underlying story that was driving the eating in the first place. Not just swapping the snack, but swapping the reason for the snack. Finding that harmony, that alignment between your inner world and your outer actions.
Okay, I get it.
And for Adrienne, looking at the bigger picture, she slowly started to fill that new physical shape she was in with permission. That was the key.
Permission for what?
Permission to not really know who she was yet in this new body. Permission to feel awkward in that in-between stage.
That messy middle part.
Right. And permission to build a new story without feeling like she had to tear down the old one completely. It was this gentle, compassionate process. And that's what eventually led her to, stand a bit longer at the mirror, not flinch. Start to actually recognize and maybe even accept her new self.
That's a powerful journey. So the invitation here for anyone listening, whether you're using something like semaglutide, thinking about it, or even just noticing these patterns in yourself,
Mhm.
is maybe to focus less on just the number on the scale and more on that window he talks about, that miracle pause.
Yeah. It's this maybe unprecedented chance to really listen to yourself, maybe for the first time in a long, long time.
Which brings up some big questions you can ask yourself in that quiet space.
Definitely. Questions like, what am I truly hungry for, underneath it all? And maybe what needs support now? What needs tending to now that food isn't automatically filling that gap?
And it comes back to Dan Hollis's core philosophy, doesn't it? Healing this kind of emotional hunger needs empathy, not judgment.
Exactly. Awareness, not
Sure.
just more rules. Curiosity, not punishment. It's really a path of self-discovery.
A journey that begins when the noise finally fades.
Yeah, you could say. When the cravings stop, the truth begins.